No role plays, no conference calls, no BS. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader. This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, I want to talk about thought leadership.
I like this topic quite a bit. I'm a big fan. So I'm looking forward to this content.
Yeah, me too. I saw a thing online on LinkedIn, and it was talking about the 4 zones of thought leadership. You know, we talk a lot about, we go back and forth on hacking your leadership. We talk about leadership theory, and we talk about, actually putting leadership into action here. And they are not separate items, meaning you can't put leadership into action without starting from somewhere. You have to start with a theory and ideally know where that theory comes from or why you gravitate towards it in order to be able to put it into action, because it will be questioned. People will ask, people want to know where you're coming from as a leader and what your plan is, so to speak. And so when I saw this thing online, the 4 zones of thought leadership, it kind of divided it up really nicely in a way that I think I've gone through in my own head many times without realizing that I was compartmentalizing them in this way. And I think this is be a good way for our listeners to kind of, similarly compartmentalize things, or at least be able to see maybe this is something they're doing already. The 4 zones of thought leadership that are mentioned in this topic are big picture stuff like organizational, high level. Then there's tactical. There's others, the people around you, the people who report through you, and then there's yourself. And there's enough here where I think we should be talking about this over 4 episodes, because each of them requires, kind of quite a bit of digging into. And so I want to talk about that over the next 4 Mondays. On this first Monday, let's talk about big picture things. What do we think about thought leadership when it comes to big picture? Things like, vision, strategy, culture, the high level stuff that you have to get right before you can put anything into play.
Yeah, no, I think this is really good because to your point earlier, we talk a lot about application of theory, down to the point that we have these 1-minute hacks, which are like actual actions we want people to go do.
Right.
But you can't get to application unless you have the theory first. And so, talking about the big picture, and there's a million, like obviously like Simon Sinek, his whole start with a why. Like these are big picture. Why do you do what you do? What is the vision? Why does it matter? And I think that sometimes in leadership, we kind of get we hear the words, we hear a vision, we make this assumption that people just say like, hey, here's the vision. We want to make the world a better place. You know what that means. I know what that means. That's our vision. Let's go. And everything we do today, like
Sure.
Team, Captain Planet. Let's do this thing, right? It's kind of like this idea. But what we don't spend a lot of time talking about is like, well, if that's our vision, if the vision is like, let's make the world a better place, then do we need to think about how are we going to do that? Like how does this actually happen? And how do I localize that as a leader? And how do I say, okay, if we're going to make the world a better place, how do we make our community a better place? Like how do we start here to then maybe impact the larger world? And then if I'm going to tell my team that, how do I want to deliver that message? When do I want to deliver that message? What's maybe the personal testimony I want to share about that message? Like there's so much here from a leadership standpoint that requires really just sitting down and thinking about it to be able to build out whatever your plan might actually be.
Right. I think about it from this standpoint. If a company is new, the first person who came up with a vision of I want to make the world a better place, that person knew what they meant. They definitely knew what they meant. Yeah. And it's likely the people in the room with them at that time also knew what they meant, or it was talked about and decided on and agreed upon. What's to say that 5 years or 3 years or 10 years or 15 years later, when you have a company that might have hundreds of people or thousands of people, what's to say that they know exactly what that group of people was thinking in that room many years earlier when it comes to making the world a better place? What's to say that it even means the same thing? Saying I want to make the world a better place means something very different in 2023 than it did in 2019 or in 2015 or in 2000, right? So the making the world a better place is a great example, but it could be any vision, any vision that your organization has. If you aren't positive that the people working alongside you agree with you on what that vision means, whatever the vision is of your organization, then that's a problem. Because if you're starting out with different end goals in mind, you're going to have different ways of getting there, and you'll end up with a lot of headbutting along the way. Being able to level set on what that means, on what the vision is, and typically there's not going to be any disagreement on what the vision is. Like, it's just words, but it's words that you heard once a long time ago, and they've been regurgitated, and you've regurgitated them to other people as you've hired them in, and hopefully you've done a good job explaining what they mean to you. But maybe they mean something different to you than they did to the previous boss that person had, if someone's moving from one team to another. So again, actually defining what this thing means and what the strategy is in order to achieve it is a really important thing. And it's not just one and done. It's something you have to constantly revisit to make sure people are on the same page, for no other reason than attrition. You have new people, you have people coming and going. The culture of an organization is a living thing, and it will get better or worse over time if you allow it to kind of just get better or worse on its own. You have to control it and structure it in a way that you want it to go, if you want it to be a positive culture, and if the strategy is going to be in service of whatever that vision is.
Yeah, and I think that to get people to really wrap their head and their hearts around a vision, it takes you having to have a very compelling story. Like
yes.
Again, if it's just like you said earlier, like if you're just regurgitating it, if you're just like repeating what the words are and they have no like meaning or emotion behind them, if you're not able to tie that to what does that mean to you, or what has that meant to us, or why are these things so important? Like why is our vision our guiding light? Why do we want to stay so close to that? And how do you play a part in doing that? Like that compelling story part when it comes to the big picture. And people say it all the time, like, you have people that communicate really effectively. People can paint the big picture. They can influence, or, from the old, the strength-based organization things, they say woo, right? Winning others over. It's one of my top 5. And that ability to bring a level of energy and passion and reason behind a vision, that brings others along, is such an important part of this. And I think that leaders, I've had leaders and I've seen thought leaders and people like all day long on the internet, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, where I could say like, man, I completely disagree with their stance on this idea, but that's a really good, compelling story.
Yeah.
Like I was like, man, that's a good way to share that. It's a great way to get people to convince that that's a thing. I completely disagree with it, but still, I have to respect the fact that that's a very compelling story that you've got there around this vision or this why or whatever that might be, and that's the power of that. And there's a lot of people that get into like the personal motivation world and that type of thing. They typically have a very compelling vision, and they're really, really good at communicating what it is and what it means to you. So I think that when we're thinking about that in a leadership big picture standpoint, and you're saying, hey, I'm either, maybe I'm joining a new team, maybe I've been asked to take on a team, maybe I've been promoted and now I'm a leader of people as opposed to an individual contributor, or maybe I'm now a leader of leaders. And now I have to think about, okay, the vision that I had yesterday around leading people directly was maybe how I took the vision of the company and made it local to the jobs they have every day as maybe an individual contributor and what they're doing, with their day-to-day. Now that I'm a leader of leaders, now that I lead other leaders, I have to think about that. How does that vision come to life when it comes to them leading people? And so again, like it's a different thing. Even though it's the same company, it could be in the same building, it's the same people around you, but now you have a different level of responsibility in this other leadership space, and you really should be thinking about, how do I now tell this story in a way that's compelling to those now that I lead? And it's going to be a different story when you're talking to leaders as opposed to individual contributors.
Right. Vision is not an if you build it, they will come statement, right? Like there's no like, oh, because I have a vision, others will share it. All I have to do is others will agree with it. All I have to do is share it, verbally, especially if it wasn't your vision to begin with, right? So every person has to have their own reason for coming along on this journey. A founder of an organization might have a very compelling vision for why they wanted to create a company and why their company exists and why it's there. But if that reason will never be universal in terms of the story, because the experience of the person who came up with it is the one that kind of fed it to begin with. The people who are working alongside that founder, whoever that is that came up with the vision, they need to be able to buy into it also. And the further away from that story they are, the harder it's going to be for them to buy into it. It's like, I'll give a perfect example. If the person is starting a company because they have a problem to solve, and once their problem is solved, it's not a problem that is shared by millions of people. It's just their problem. It's unlikely there's going to be a company to begin with, because it's just a problem that they solved. The idea of the company was probably to solve a problem that person had, that hopefully a lot of other people have the exact same problem. They're trying to solve that problem too. And so the right way to hire for that company is to hire other people who have had that same problem, and they have used whatever the services of that company are. They believe in that because they've used that same thing to solve their problem, or to help solve that same problem of a loved one, a family, or a friend, a family member, or a friend. And the more that you can actually have people have an emotional buy-in to whatever that vision is, the more likely it is to be successful. Now, does everybody need that? No, not at all. It's a varying degree in terms of what is needed. And some people, if they're just there it doesn't matter to them, the vision doesn't matter, they're just there to get their job done, as long as they're doing it in a high performing way, and they're meeting the needs of the business, and they're meeting their goals and accomplishing what their kind of their job description is, then that's fine too. But other people need that emotional tie-in in order to be able to do good work for an organization. And as a leader, it's your job to figure out, if a person is not performing, are they not performing because this is lacking? And if it's lacking, then is it something that can be filled in? Meaning, can you do a better job of explaining it in order to make them buy in? Or is it not possible for them to buy in because it's just not a vision they share, or one that impacts them personally enough to where they can buy in? And as time goes on, I'm seeing more and more employees who, if they don't have that emotional tie-in to whatever that vision is, they don't have the ability to put forth their best effort. They can put forth effort. They can start, and they can hope, and they can kind of fake it till they make it a little bit. But if they don't end up making it, in a very short period of time, 3 months, 6 months, a year, chances are they end up plateauing in terms of what you can expect out of them from a productivity and an engagement standpoint. The people who engage the most fully are the ones that have that emotional tie-in. I've said this, even one of our first episodes 6 years ago now. I said that one of my mentors, whenever she has a career conversation with somebody, it starts out with the questions: do you know why we exist? And is that exciting to you? Do you know why we exist on this planet? And does that excite you? Do you like that that's why we exist? Because if the answer to either of those is no, there's no point in continuing the conversation. You have to get those two things right first, or the likelihood of having a kind of a fulfilling career, or even a fulfilling day with a company like that, it's a lot less likely to happen.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is kind of like the atmosphere that
right.
you want to have with a culture in an organization, and what you said earlier, those two different things. So like there's the person that's here that doesn't necessarily need to feel like they personally tie into a larger vision. They just come to work and they want to do a good job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, like I'll come in, I'll do what's being asked of me. Maybe every once in a while I'll do a little bit more, but for the most part, I'm just getting the job done how you want me to get it done.
Right.
And maybe I'm not personally connected to this larger vision. Okay. And then you've got those that need a connection to a larger vision to not only, I think doing the bare minimum is the expectation, but to get them to kind of unlock and to do more and to exceed that and to push themselves and potentially build careers, whatever that is, they may need that, clear understanding of the larger vision. But when it comes to atmosphere, that's where you have to also think about as a leader, like, what do you want in that atmosphere? Are you okay with both of those things at the same time? Mm-hmm. I hear a lot of people that are like, yeah, like that's perfectly fine. Like if you want to come here and just do a good job, I'm okay with that. But then it's like, then they get frustrated when it's like, well, why isn't this person trying to get more? Like, why are they?
Yep.
It's like, well, which one do you want? Right.
Right.
Because to have an atmosphere that includes both of those, you have to be clear in your vision that both of these are good and why they're good and why you want them here. If you say, no, I only want a team of high achievers that are committed and dedicated to our vision, and they're going to give every bit of everything they have to this thing, then you make that clear up front in your vision. And we'll see, like, how does that look from your team standpoint? How long can people do that? Are they fully committed? And who knows? That's completely up to you. But as a leader, you have to consider, what is the atmosphere and what do I want? And then what am I doing when I communicate this vision to make sure that it's clear that this is exactly what I'm looking for?
Right. And if you are leading a team of people where the jobs being filled by your team are really career-oriented jobs. They're all, salaried positions, where you have people who have maybe a specialized education that they needed to get before they joined that company or that team. The more of those there are, the more you can be kind of stringent on hey, we only want people here who are looking at who are looking at big picture things, who are here for the long run, who are committed and who are dedicated. If you're leading a team of people where you have part-time hourly people working for you, good luck in having a team like that where the minimum expectation from you is that everybody is a dedicated, career-oriented person for this. There's going to be people there where this job is a stepping stone to something else. They're there because it works within their life in the other goals they're trying to accomplish. So, there's no right or wrong, but there is realistic and unrealistic in terms of what your expectations might be as a leader, and then how you bring that to life for those people who you want to make sure that even if they're just there for the interim, that they at least aren't hurting the culture, that they understand that there's a place for them there, and that they can kind of bring their best selves, and you're there to help support them, even if it's temporary.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1-minute hack. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
All right, for this episode's 1-minute hack, here's what I want you to do. Get out a pen and paper and write down a list of all the people who report directly up to you. If you're not leading a team of people right now, write down a list of people who you consider to be peers of yours, people who that maybe if you're trying to move up in an organization, these are the people you may end up leading if you were to get a promotion into a leadership role. I want you to think about what the vision is of the organization, and I want you to think about how you bring that to life. What does it mean to you, and is it important to you? Is it something that you resonate with, and are you excited by it? Then I want you to have that same conversation with the people on that list. Ask each one of them individually. It can be informal. You don't have to schedule time and sit down with them. It can be something that is done in a kind of a passing, 5-minute walking conversation. But have this conversation with each of them and find out if they understand what the vision of the organization is. Why does the organization, and more importantly, why does your team exist? Why does this thing exist that you do every day? And is that exciting to you? And if the answer to either of those is no, it is your job as a leader to figure out how to fix that, or to at least make sure that those people understand what the expectation is while they are there, given the fact that they're working alongside people who may really buy into that and are excited by why they're here and want to make a career out of it. Again, there's no right or wrong answer, but letting it go and working alongside a lot of people who have different visions and different meanings of what that vision is, that's when you start to run into problems with what the strategy ends up having to be.
Yeah, that's a great 1-minute hack. And I would even say, peeling back the layers a little bit in this context of the thought leadership, is like, how much time do you think about personally, what do you believe the mission and vision of the company is, and does that excite you, and why and how, and what is it about that? And because these are the building blocks of what you need to be able to have that compelling story for the team. So like even asking the questions of them, let's say they say no to one of those two questions. Okay, well then where do you start? Like, you're obviously not going to say, oh, well, thank you for playing, but you don't work here anymore, right? Like,
Right.
You're going to have to be like, all right, like how am I going to then respond to that? And what am I going to share? And how am I going to give them the opportunity to understand exactly what it is that we stand for, that we work towards, and how that is an exciting work to do? Like, you have to be really clear about that for yourself. And then you also have to be really clear about how you would explain that to somebody else to make sure that they can then understand that as well. And that's the compelling story part of it.
Right. I know a lot of leaders who would be kind of timid to have this conversation with themselves. They don't want to look in the mirror and ask themselves these questions because they don't necessarily buy into it. They don't necessarily believe in it. And they're worried that if they admit that to themselves, that their productivity and their engagement will drop off. They're kind of faking it a little bit, hoping that it comes eventually, or maybe they had it at one point and they're worried about trying to take the leap into a different organization or a different, a different industry, or going back to school and learning something different. They're worried about what it means to admit that they're not bought into whatever that vision is anymore. But I'll tell you, the earlier this can be done, the better, because the longer you work in a role in an industry, in an organization, for a boss that doesn't do this for you, that doesn't make you have this emotional tie-in. If you are career-minded, the less you will engage over time, and the less that you will be able to look back on the work that you did as something you are proud of. The less you will spend time impacting positively the people who report up to you. You have to start with being able to buy into this if you are in a leadership role. And if you really can't, then it's probably time to move on to at least a different company, if not a different industry.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.